Hello, Jim Townsend. My website's at townsend.b. So you no doubt understand now my thesis that the world is run by global bankers who merely put ink to paper and exchange their liabilities for your assets in order to put you into debt. As I said, the Bank of International Settlements has an asset base of $175 trillion, and the world owes them a debt of $100 trillion. So force, religion, and legislation. We know how police and military, of course the police are the endogenous force, the military the exogenous force. You know also about the three power centers of force, religion, and legislation. Washington, D.C. being the center of global force, London being the center of global legislation, and Vatican City, of course, being the center of religion. Smash a society, bring in religion to bend their minds, and then bring in legislation. Definition of free, not subject to the legal constraint of another. So if you're constrained by legislation, then you're a slave. Now, I want to talk to you about the difference between lawful and legal. Lawful. Lawful is predicated upon what's morally and ethically correct. Well, what is legal is simply the written form of the law. But I say unto you that unless the written form of the law matches the intent of the law, what's lawful, what's morally and ethically correct, then it's not lawful, and therefore it's invalid and it's not legal. So not any legal gobbledygook issuing from a court is lawful. And you see, therein lies a very great deception. Okay, now think about what a legal contract is. A legal contract has three main attributes. First of all, there must be full disclosure. If it's not written specifically in the contract, it's not a part of the contract, and it doesn't matter what you assume or presume or anything else. It's simply not part of the contract. So you need full disclosure. You need mutual consideration. In other words, in my mind, in the mind of the people signatory to that contract, I have to have legal consideration. That means an exchange of value. If it's one-sided, it's not a contract. You don't need a contract to give something to somebody, and in fact you can't enter into a contract to give something to somebody because there's no consideration. So that's not a legal contract. If you simply give something to somebody, it's a gift. The third element is mutual agreement. If you are coerced into signing a contract, it doesn't matter if it's financial coercion, physical coercion, or anything else, then it's not a legal contract. So full disclosure, mutual consideration, and mutual agreement. Now I want to talk to you about this so-called social contract. Okay. Can you enter me into a legal contract? Well, the answer to that is no, because I'm not I don't have my signature on that contract. I'm simply not a part of that contract. Now the question is, if you cannot enter me into a contract, you do not have that ability of your own accord, do you then gain that ability because you get together with a group of people and a whole group of you decide to enter me into a legal contract that's legally binding on me? Well, the answer to that is no. If you don't possess that power individually, then you certainly don't possess that power collectively. Now, if you go to my video about taxpayers and tax receivers, what I'm talking about, a taxpayer is Jim R. Private. A tax receiver is John Q. Public. You see, I am a private man, I am not a public man, and public laws do not apply to me. What I mean by that. Now, we have these this foreign legislative body from London came in, and it's called the Bar Association. They're a private legal system franchise operating under color and guise of law in our courts. Now they formed a corporation called Canada, and they gave that corporation a constitution. Every corporation has a constitution, which are just the rules and regulations for the corporation and apply to the employees of the corporation. So what is called a constitution in Canada does not apply to me as a private citizen. It's the employment contract of the public. And you see, the public have full disclosure. The Constitution is completely disclosed to them. They also have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is the rights that they have as an employee under that Constitution. You see, the Constitution and the Charter of Rights do not apply to you as a free man. If somebody tries to enforce a Charter of Rights on you as a free man, what that means is they've stolen your unlimited freedom, and now they've said, oh, you only have these freedoms in this contract, even though you don't get mutual consideration from it, you don't get full disclosure or anything else. So the question is, if you are hired by the public and you sign an employee contract as a member of the public, and now the Constitution and the Charter of Rights or the Bill of Rights applies to you, do you have the legal right to extend that to me as a private citizen? Well, no, you don't. And you see, therein is where the public is unknowingly being used by this foreign corporation to attack the private citizens of their country. Because the public does not have the lawful right to enforce that one-sided contract onto the private citizens of this country. You see, they say that, well, you have a social contract, and this is an assumpsit contract. Now, they call it an assumpsit contract, but look up an assumpsit. An assumpsit is not a contract. It's a piece of legal gobbledygook. It's bullshit. They say that we just assume this, and unless you specifically negatively aver it, it stands as a legal fiction in court. And I'm using, these are the legal terms, by the way. Get yourself Black's Law Dictionary and look them up. What is a legal fiction? Well, a legal fiction is held to be the truth, even though they may know that it's not the truth unless you specifically negatively aver it. So you have to specifically negatively aver everything. And the first thing that you do is you say, well, prove your authority in me. You see, because here we're back to this legal contract. Now, these people that work for the public, they go off and they vote. And they vote for the person that they want to dictate to them. They get to vote for their who represents them as an employer. But they believe the act of voting makes me somehow signatory to their contract. But you see, I don't vote. And I don't vote because I don't want somebody to represent me. I want to represent myself. I'm self-governing. I'm self-representing. I don't even want to be a part of the contract. I am not a member of the public. I'm not a part of the public. Now, all of my life, I have had this public contract fraudulently misrepresented to me. You see, for many years, I paid into an income tax scheme, believing that I had to as part of my contract. Now, I've heard before that, you know, it was voluntary and all that other sort of stuff, but the fact of the matter is, we all know it's not voluntary. If you don't volunteer to pay your taxes, they rubber stamp an ex parte federal court judgment against you where you don't even get to go to court. They just use the courts to attack you. Get onto my Townsend.b website and click on the little CRA link, and you will see one of those ex parte federal court judgments. I didn't even know that I had a federal court judgment for Her Majesty to seize all my belongings for debts owed to her. I've never bummed a dime off her in my life. Didn't know why I owed her debts, and why would I owe debts to somebody on the other side of the earth, especially somebody that has sworn to uphold the true gospel. Well, apparently she never read the Lord's Prayer, as Christ himself says to pray, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. So, you know, you really have to look at the legal system. Understand what is lawful, what your lawful rights are, and what your legal rights are. Ask yourself, have you entered into some sort of a legal agreement with the government whereby they fully disclose the nature of this social program to you, showing you exactly what you get for what you pay into it, and also, are you do you agree to this? It's like the Income Tax Act. The Income Tax Act is not written by the United States, and it's not written by Canada in Canada. It's written by a Belgian company. CCH Canadian is a Belgian company that writes the Income Tax Act. Currency Clearinghouse. This is just a currency clearinghouse over in Belgium that clears all of the financial transactions of the banks every night. And this is what they have decided to impose on you, because you see this phony corporation calling itself your government puts you up and has pledged all of your labor resources. Now, if you get onto the World Bank charter, the people running this scam, you'll see that the charter has written in their legislation for dealing with de facto governments. De facto means in fact. It's not a lawful de jure government. We have to reinstate lawful de jure governments, and we have to go back to the rule of free men so that we can once again live in lawful jural societies where we are ruling our own lives. We have to take the law back into our own hands where it rightfully belongs, and away from the lawyers and judges who are using it merely to feather their own nest. I hope I've given you something to talk about. Peace, my friends. I love you all.